The Washington Wizards may be a lot better than a lot of people think. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think the Wizards are going to be a playoff level team. They would be lucky to be a play-in level team, if you ask me. But I think they're still going to be a lot better than a lot of people are expecting, because I think a lot of people are expecting them to be on like the bottom tier of the NBA, which is possible, don't get me wrong. I just don't see that happening. I think they're going to be a little bit better than like the Detroit Pistons and the Brooklyn Nets of the world going into next year because of a few different reasons I'm going to get into a little bit later in this video, and I'm just a little bit higher on them really as a whole. And I think that the Wizards could really shock a few people and really kind of turn some heads that they might actually have a pretty solid foundation and future ahead of them going forward. So I really want to highlight a few things about this roster, why I think it's a better roster than a lot of people give them credit for, and things like that. So if that does sound interesting to you, please watch the video all the way through. And without further ado, without running on too much, let's get right into this video. So the first thing I really want to highlight for this team is the fact that I think they're going to have an extremely underrated front court going into the NBA next year. Now, do I think it's going to be a top 5 or even maybe top 10 front court? Probably not, but I do think it's going to be a top 15 front court and has a chance to get better as the year progresses, assuming they don't make any huge trades, which is very likely for a team like the Wizards. So, but going into the NBA, I do think that the Wizards have a very underrated front court going into this season from game one, as their center this year is going to be Jonas Valanciunas. Now, Jonas Valanciunas, he's played for my favorite team, the New Orleans Pelicans, for a few years now, and in my opinion, has been one of the more underrated bigs in the entire league. Now, yes, does he have his flaws and his shortcomings? Of course. He's pretty slow. He can't guard the perimeter for shit. And I mean, overall, he'll miss some layups that are just like, what the hell? But he also has plenty of upsides, and I think he is very underrated in a lot of things he does. He is legitimately a top 5 rebounder in the entire NBA and is going to solve any rebounding issues the Wizards had last year. That's how good of a rebounder he is. He's one of the best offensive and defensive rebounders, and just overall an extremely good guy on the boards for a big man. And then on top of that, he is very underrated on his offensive ability. He can legitimately shoot the three. Like, you can't just leave him wide open. Like, no, he won't shoot 50% from three, but there are games where he can hit the three and is going to spread the offense out and is going to make you a much harder team to guard due to his floor spacing ability. And then also he has a pretty solid mid-range and turnaround game. He's pretty strong in the paint, so you're not going to get bullied or anything. And he's overall definitely an above average center in the NBA and one of the less talked about underrated guys in the NBA this year, or really for the past few years. And I think he deserves a lot more credit than he has been getting. And I think the Wizards got him on an absolute steal of a contract that they're going to be very tradable by the time trade deadline comes. And if he is having a good year, there are probably a few contending level teams willing to give up a few first round picks for a guy like Jonas Valanciunas. And then his partner is going to be the number 2 overall pick from last year, or this year's draft, should I say, Alex Sarr. Now, Alex Sarr, I'm very high on him. I know he had an extremely rough summer league, okay? Like, I understand, but I watched his tape for an entire year overseas in a professional basketball league. He just has to get comfortable. I think him playing alongside with better players also is going to make it a lot easier, because when you're in the summer league and you're a super high pick, like a top 2 pick like Alex Sarr was, everyone's focusing on you, and that is very tough, because it's really the first time in your life where you as a professional basketball player, it's in a situation where you're the guy. Like, you're looked at to be the stud, you're the scorer and all that, and that's very hard to do, because Alex Sarr really doesn't play like that, and he didn't overseas. So kind of that like expectation of him to come into the summer league and dominate as the guy when everyone's focused on him and game planning to stop him is a little unrealistic. So I think with him playing alongside with other weapons like Poole, Kuzma, Jonas, and players like that, I think it's going to really help him a lot. Malcolm Brogdon, I think it's really going to help him a lot to play alongside those guys, because it's going to take a lot of the pressure off of him, especially on that offensive end of the ball. Is going to really just be able to show what he can really do, because I think Alex Sarr has a legit superstar potential, because although yes, his offensive game needs polishing, his jump shotting is although he does have a nice foundation for a center when it comes to shooting and a kind of spreading the floor, it is not fully there yet, and he has to get more consistent on that end of the ball, and I think he will. He just has a little bit more work to do. But what I think he's going to excel in right away is the defense side of the ball, and he showed that in the summer league. He was a very good defender in the summer league. I think he averaged like 3 blocks a game in the summer league. Like, he was a absolute dog because of his athleticism, and due to his athleticism and his size size and his mobility, he has unbelievable potential on that side of the ball and can legitimately guard like the 2 through 5 positions because he is just that mobile and that good of a player on the defensive side of the ball. And as he gets more comfortable and as he gets to better and better in his shooting ability as well, and he just, like I said, just gets more comfortable in the NBA game, I think that offense is going to come along and they legitimately could have a all-star to superstar level player from Alex Sarr. That's how high I am on him as a prospect, and I think he is a future of the big man position in the NBA. Like the guys like Wembanyama, the guys like Chet Holmgren, and now the guys like Alex Sarr, I think that is the future of the big man position, and he is going to be a perfect fit for the Wizards long term and should be a very, very good player for them even at the end of this year, assuming he stays healthy and gets comfortable and that offensive game develops the way I think it will. So with Jonas and Alex Sarr together, I think it's going to farm an extremely good front court, and I think they really are kind of a yin and yang. Like Jonas is the super big, not as mobile, strong guy, back to the basket, gonna grab boards type of guy, while Alex Sarr is the new age, can spread the floor, more offensively talented, very athletic type guy, but not as strong and big. And I think they're gonna really kind of play off of each other very well, and they should be a pretty formidable front court for anyone to have to deal with on a nightly basis. And then to really even look at this roster as a whole, I think their young core is one of the more underrated in the NBA as well, because I already highlighted Alex Sarr and how I feel about him, and I think he has superstar potential, but they have a few other young guys that I think also are very solid. They have Bilal Coulibaly, who although was very solid last year, didn't really get a lot of attention because he played for the Washington Wizards, so rightfully so, but I think Bilal has tons of potential, especially on the defensive side of the ball. He could be a perennial all-defensive team player in the future. He's insane on that end, and his offensive game is not that bad either. He's going to develop, it's going to get better, and he has almost like Herb Jones-like potential on that side of the ball and in the NBA going forward, and he is only like 20 years old, 21 years old, something like that, so he still has a very long runway ahead of him for development. Bub Carrington, although I wasn't the highest on him in this draft, I do see his potential, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Now, although I think he's probably going to have consistency issues early and probably in his whole first few years in the NBA, I think if he can get the consistency down, he could be a very much of a weapon, especially on the offensive side of the ball going forward, and could be a high-level player for them. Tristan Vucevic, I think, is one of the more underrated young guys in the league. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think Tristan Vucevic is a star by any means, but I think for him to be a 21-year-old center who got drafted in the second round of his class, I'm pretty sure, I think he has pretty good potential for being a second-round prospect and is going to be a fairly solid rotational guy for them this year. And then lastly, Keyshawn George, a guy that I was pretty high on going into this class. He has very good size, can shoot the hell out of the ball, has good potential on both sides of the ball due to his size. He's pretty athletic, and I think could legitimately be a starter for them going forward in the future, and probably this year will be a very high-level role player for them, and will get a lot of minutes due to his age. So I think with this young core, with all their ceilings, with the amount of potential that they have untapped on this roster, I think it could go a very, very long way for them, and this young core is one of the more underrated ones in the entire league, in my opinion. And to go with this young core, they have a lot of mentors as well, as even the veterans are, like I mentioned earlier, I like Jonas. I think Malcolm Brogdon is going to be a great addition to this team. Brogdon wasn't here all year last year, and they actually got a lot better when Brogdon ran point for them. Brogdon is legitimately solid. Now, will he finish the year with them? Probably not, but Brogdon should be a pretty good veteran for the young guards like Jordan Poole, Bub Carrington, Johnny Davis, and guys like that. Kyle Kuzma at this point, I think he's 25, 26? No, I think he's like 29 years old actually. But Kyle Kuzma is a veteran at this point, and I think he is going to be able to pretty much kind of mentor them. Now, Kuzma might not be the best mentor, but Kuzma is a very solid player who is actually good in the NBA. So he legitimately could give nice tips, good insights to any of the young guys behind him. Same with Marvin Bagley. Now, Bagley is only 25, but still at this point, I wouldn't say he's a young guy, and he is what he is, and he has experience in the NBA. He knows what it takes to at least stay in the league as a rotational guy, so hopefully he can give some tips as well. And overall, even from outside of just a mentor perspective, I think Jonas, Brogdon, and Kuzma are all extremely solid players in their own right and should lead to winning with how they play, especially Brogdon and Jonas, in my opinion. And now that I highlighted their young guys, their veterans, and why I think their front court is going to be a lot better than a lot of people were expecting, I also think this team has a potential to be a pretty solid two-way team, because they if you look at it, the best teams are good on defense and offense, and they're very versatile. There's not really a weakness on them for the best teams in the league. And although I think the Wizards are far from being one of the best teams in the league and far from even being a elite two-way team, I think that they have the foundation to build from here to really make a very good two-way team, because I think Bilal Coulibaly is going to be a great plus defender for a very long time for the Wizards. I think Alex Sarr is going to be an amazing defender for them. Keyshawn George could become a very good defender for them. And then on the offensive end, they have tons of weapons. They have Jordan Poole, Kyle Kuzma, Bub Carrington, Malcolm Brogdon, Sadiq Bey, Marvin Bagley, Corey Kispert, and a few other guys. I think this team could be very solid offensively. It might even be a top 15 offense in the league if they're able to mesh well and play good together. And even their defense should be much improved, because last year their defense was very bad. Now look, the Wizards were very bad last year at everything, but their defense was one of those things that was just pretty atrocious. So I think the additions of guys like Alex Sarr, the development of Bilal Coulibaly, and even maybe Keyshawn George could legitimately lead this team to being at least a better defensive team going forward. Now, do I think they're going to be elite at either? No, and not even close. But do I think they're going to be improved? Yes, and I think they have a legit map and roadmap and plan and vision to improve going forward. I think their young core has untapped potential. I think the vets could help them win a few games, and I think their young guys, like I said, are going to get better as the years go on and as they get more comfortable together, and they should keep improving as they have good drafts, as they make good free agent additions, good trades, and hopefully the Wizards could have a pretty bright future ahead of them. But unfortunately, guys, that's going to be it for this video. So comment below. Do you agree with me? Do you think the Wizards are going to be better than people expect? Do you think they're going to be worse? I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. And if you like, point, hit the like button and subscribe button. It means the absolute world to me. And I hope you have a blessed day, because I had a blessed day, so you need a blessed day. All glory to God. See you in the next video. Goodbye. Boo. Blah.